Good day. I am Sophia Librado, and our group discussion focuses on global media and information literacy, country readiness, and competencies. Let me begin by showing you an image. What do you notice in it? We see people scrolling on their phones even while walking, and honestly, most, if not all of us, do this every day. We are constantly seeking and consuming information anytime and anywhere. But how often do we actually stop and question if what we are seeing is accurate or reliable? Now, let's take a closer look. What do we usually use a magnifying glass for? For examining details that are not obvious at first glance. In the same way, media and information literacy assessment allows us to closely examine how well individuals function as both consumers and producers of information. Today, I will be discussing the rationale or reasons behind assessing media and information literacy. This will help us see why being a meal literate is no longer optional, but necessary in our daily lives. Let us begin by looking at how fast media and technology has grown. Media has expanded over time. Let's look at the periods when each form rose in popularity. From print media in the 1800s, to outdoor media such as billboards in the 1900s, to broadcast media such as radio and television in the early to mid 1900s, and ultimately to digital media in the 21st century. From the way media has evolved, we now move to how it directly shapes one of its most important functions, news consumption. This report by the Reuters Institute for the Study of Journalism, based on a survey of 2014 Filipinos in 2025, presents how Filipinos access news today. The graph illustrates trends from 2020 to 2025, showing that the distribution of news sources has remained largely unchanged over the years. In 2025, print media, such as newspapers, was used by only 13% of respondents, while radio was used by 17%, showing that both lagged behind. Television, on the other hand, was used by 46%. In contrast, social media accounts for 66% of news consumption, while 83% of Filipinos access news through any online sources. So what does this data imply? It shows that digital media is now the main source of information. While many still watch television, fewer people listen to the radio for news, especially today's generation. Before, our Lola and Lola used it as a main source of news, but now, how many of us still do? May I ask who here still listens to the radio for news, not just for music? In contrast, fewer people read newspapers today, which is concerning because they typically offer more contextualized reporting, meaning they provide complete details, not just surface-level information that we often encounter on social media. If this continues, newspapers may slowly disappear. Now, may I also ask who here buy newspapers for news consumption, not just for recycled projects at school? Today, we are surrounded by an overwhelming number of media sources coming from all directions, making information constantly available, often competing for attention and shaping how we perceive events in real time. To keep pace with this development, a strategic partnership was established between the World Bank and the Philippine government through the World Bank Group Philippines Country Partnership Framework for 2026 to 2031. One of the key moves under this initiative is the expansion of telecommunications towers to improve connectivity, especially in rural areas. Our country is striving to keep pace as digital connectivity rapidly advances worldwide, which means more and more Filipinos are going to be online. Because of this, meal assessment is needed to determine whether individuals can effectively navigate and make sense of information in an increasingly connected and rapidly changing media environment. Beyond national efforts, this shift is part of a larger global digital transformation. Picture this. You are craving a specific dish, a seafood pasta perhaps, that is only available in a certain restaurant, but it is far from your home. Before, you had to travel just to eat it. Now, you can simply order it online using your phone. then it gets delivered straight to your doorstep. This shows how technology has transformed our lives, which is known as digital transformation. Digital transformation simply means using digital technologies to improve systems and services, with benefits including driving innovation, improving operations, and enhancing customer experience. We can see how the Philippine government applies this by making services like NBI clearance, PRC transactions, and PhilHealth services accessible online, making them faster and more convenient for citizens. Now, according to the ICT, over 70% of government services are now available online, showing how the Philippines has kept pace with the global digital transformation, which emphasizes the need for meal assessment to determine whether individuals can effectively access and use digital government services. To further support this discussion, our group conducted a survey among senior high school students from different schools across the city, including USTP, Liceo de Cagayan, Lourdes College, FINMA, Pilgrim, and STI. The data were collected through an online questionnaire using Google Forms, allowing us to gather responses efficiently from multiple institutions. Based on the responses gathered, we found a 3.73 mean, which indicates a high level of agreement that students find library and online resources accessible in their school facilities. This reflects how schools have undergone digital transformation, shifting from only traditional physical libraries to electronic or e-libraries that are now accessible to students. As digital services expand, it is important to consider whether individuals have the foundational skills needed to engage with them, which brings us to basic literacy. According to the Philippine Statistics Authority, among individuals aged 5 and above, although 90% are classified as basic literate, meaning they can read, write with understanding, and perform basic computations, there are still 3.2% who are considered low literate or able to read and write only simple words, and 6.9% who are unable to read and write or illiterate. This is due to factors such as poverty, which limits access to educational resources, and multilingualism, where some individuals struggle to shift from their mother tongue to the main languages of instruction, Filipino and English. This becomes more concerning as these figures represent millions of Filipinos who still struggle with basic literacy, especially as the demands of literacy continue to expand. Reading and writing remain foundational, but beyond basic literacy, citizens also need digital, news, media, and other literacies to effectively engage with information today. To further examine this, our survey results show a 3.83 mean, indicating a high level of agreement among senior high school students that digital and media skills are essential in today's environment. This shows that students are aware of the importance of these skills, but awareness alone does not always mean they are fully developed, and this emphasizes the need for meal assessment to determine whether individuals can go beyond basic reading and writing and also understand how they use modern literacies to engage with information effectively. However, having these skills becomes even more critical in the presence of fake news. As I've said earlier, more and more Filipinos are going to be online tomorrow, next week, and the following years. But this increased connectivity also amplifies the spread of disinformation and other information disorders. In today's digital age, disinformation has been metaphorically described by Michelle Bachelet, UN Human Rights Chief, as a symptom of global diseases, undermining public trust. Now, why do you think it's described as a symptom of global diseases? A symptom is a sign that something is wrong in the body, like a fever. In this context, this information is a sign that deeper issues already exist in society. The global diseases here is a metaphor for social problems such as lack of trust between people and institutions, political and social division, and weak media and information literacy. Now, what other social problems can you think of that disinformation may also be a symptom of? In the Philippine context, a 2021 survey by Boses Pilipinas and Ateneo de Manila University found that respondents who trusted Facebook scored 5.7 out of 10 in detecting fake news, while those who distrusted it scored higher at 7.2, showing that higher trust in platforms can correspond to weaker ability to identify false information. And this emphasizes the importance of meal assessment to determine whether individuals can recognize, question, or avoid being deceived by biased or fake news. Now, in order for individuals to critically evaluate information, what do they need? Critical thinking. Visualize this scenario. You are buying a pair of shoes. One store has a low price, another is expensive. Instead of buying right away, you keep searching for the store with the best quality and reasonable price, and you eventually find it. Now you choose based on what is reasonable, not just the first option you see. This is like critical thinking in digital context, where you do not rely on one source of information, but to search, compare, and verify before accepting it. Hence, in digital context, it is defined by UNESCO as distrusting information online and the process of accessing, reflecting, and evaluating the assumptions underlying one's own and others' ideas and actions. In practice, this concept can be seen in how Filipinos consume news. In the same report from the Reuters Institute Digital News Report 2025, cited earlier, among the roughly one quarter of Filipino respondents, 544 of 2014, who fact-checked on social media, 45% relied on official sources, 35% on influencers, 34% on journalists, and 26% on fact-checkers and subject experts. What do you notice in the figures shown? It shows that in this case, influencers are trusted more than journalists and fact-checking experts when verifying information online. And this implies that for some people today, credibility is not always based on expertise, but is sometimes influenced by popularity. Some people may rely more on Ivana Lawi than Dr. Willie Ong for health or diet advice. Although not generalizable, this shows how Filipinos rely on different sources when verifying information online. And these figures are important in meal assessment to determine whether individuals can compare different sources effectively and who they seek when determining credibility online. However, not everyone has equal access to develop these critical thinking skills in the digital space, which brings us to digital poverty. Digital poverty refers to the condition where individuals have limited or no access to digital technologies and the skills needed to use them effectively. In the Philippines, the most recent data available from the 2024 Internet Poverty Index by World Data Lab ranks the country 56th of 169 nations in internet poverty, with 18.33 million Filipinos unable to afford a basic 1 gig mobile internet package. This is due to poverty and limited infrastructure, especially in areas with slow internet connectivity. This situation of affordability results in unequal access to opportunities in areas such as education and government online services. Meal assessment is needed to determine whether the individuals can access digital tools and skills and to identify who is excluded from these online opportunities. This time, you might be wondering, why should assessment come first? Meal assessment should come first because these gaps in skills and access must first be identified in order for educators, institutions, and policymakers to design appropriate and targeted solutions. There are several initiatives in the Philippines that help improve media and information literacy in different areas. First, to ensure that students better develop basic literacy, the National Reading Program, including Catched Up Fridays, is a DepEd program that gives extra reading and writing activities every Friday for students. Next, the Bayanihan SIM project by DICT and DSWD provides for BIS beneficiaries with free SIM cards containing 25 gig of data for every month for 12 months, allowing them to access online learning and government services. The Digital Transformation Center, DTC, by DICT is a facility that provides free access to computers, laptops, and Wi-Fi so that students and workers that have no personal devices can utilize these digital tools. After that, we have Panata Contra Fake News by the GMA Network Coalition. It is its biggest campaign that aims to educate the public about fake news and encourages media groups and citizens to work together in combating fake news. In 2024, the GMA Network and other 50-plus media organizations and universities signed the pledge to fight disinformation. Lastly, LARD, or Facebook group, where we comment on posts so we can practice critical thinking and develop the confidence to speak up on issues that affect us. Again, as media and technology expand and more people rely on digital platforms, media and information literacy becomes more important than ever. Meal assessment evaluates country readiness when it comes to applying and developing meal competencies. Because individuals differ in access and skills, assessment should come first to identify these gaps and provide appropriate solutions. And this concludes my report. Thank you for watching. Now, to further understand how literacy develops, the next topic on literacy as an evolving concept will be presented by Ms. Lianne Padillo.
Hi and welcome once again to this video. Now, before we begin, how about let's go on a walk? And on this walk, what if we see something? And what is this? Oh, butterflies. Where will these butterflies take us? Let's see. So, let us go somewhere to a nation that we go often. It's our imagination. Now, I want you to imagine that you have just graduated high school, saying that you can read and write perfectly, but unable to spot or analyze the information that you see online. Well, this is a reality for many. Now, literacy is not just a pen and a notebook skill nowadays. Today, it has evolved in multiple contexts. Now, let's begin. Now, literacy was just defined before as just reading and writing. Learning began in classrooms with just a pencil and a notebook. But nowadays, we find information online. We learn multiple stuffs online. We search information because we cannot see it alone on our textbook. Nowadays, from just reading and writing, we now learn through videos, through watching educational videos that we see online, such as in YouTube. Now, also, we have evolved to having digital projects with groups having collaborative projects with digital gadgets, such as through the use of presentations, like tablets and then laptops, using those gadgets. And the next is social media content creation that we now see in the platforms that we use, such as Facebook, Instagram. Here we have an example from grade 11 discipline. Now, these days, we see that students engage with both digital and traditional forms of learning. In a survey we conducted among students here in Cagayan de Oro City, senior high school students, we have received a 3.67 mean, reaching a high agreement that students agree that literacy is more than just reading and writing. Well, we aren't just guessing that literacy evolved, as our peers already recognize the definition has shifted. This highlights that literacy today is not static. It is about understanding, evaluating, and creating information in various situations. Now let us move on to understanding what is traditional literacy. Now, in December 10, 1948, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was held, and among these rights, literacy was recognized and established as a fundamental human right in Article 19. Now, those days meant that being literate or knowing how to read and write gave you access to jobs, education, and civic participation. Now, in today's context, a Filipino high school graduate may know how to read and be labeled as literate and illiterate. if they do not know how to read and write. Literate if they know how to read and write, and illiterate if they do not know how to read and write. But this idea is outdated because nowadays a student might be literate in using TikTok for entertainment, but illiterate in using those same tools to verify a claim. This proves that the binary label is too simple to describe modern skills, because knowing how to read and write alone cannot help us navigate online content responsibly nowadays. Well, you can read words without comprehending their impact. This is where the old definition fails. Now, in FLIMS 2024, around 18 million Filipinos finished high school despite being functionally illiterate. Filipinos aged 10 to 64 years old have a high basic literacy rate, but they are functionally illiterate, and this emphasizes that literacy now includes understanding, comprehension, and communication of information, especially now. While calling this 18 million people illiterate just because they can write and read is misleading. They can decode letters, but they cannot evaluate the truth behind the text. It's like when someone sends you a long message explaining why they ghosted you. You can read every single word perfectly, but if you do not understand the meaning behind it, are you truly literate in that situation? You might say that, but I can read the words, so I'm literate, right? Well, we are clinging to a 1948 definition in a 2026 world. If our definition of literate is only knowing how to read and write the words, but not identifying the meaning behind it, not knowing how to identify the information it came from, the source, then the definition is obsolete, outdated. We are not illiterate, but under-equipped. Literacy is also about verification, not just about consonants and vowels. Now, this leads us to the idea of multiple literacies. Now here we have a story. Maria can read and write, but then she comes across this post that there will be no grade 11 and 12 for the school year 2026 to 2027. Now coming across this post, she struggles to verify this claim. She doesn't know how to verify whether this is true or not. Well, here we can see that reading and writing alone cannot get her past this obstacle. In which this post, by the way, is just a misinformation as said by DepEd in their official page in Facebook. Now this shows that digital, media, information, and ICT skills are needed for her to navigate online content responsibly. There is no single notion of literacy that we possess or not, but multiple literacy. Now this makes literacy situational, pluralistic, and dynamic. Now how do we define this? Now let us learn why literacy is situational, pluralistic, and dynamic. Let us begin with situational. While literacy is not a universal skill that works the same everywhere. A student in a rural area with a 2G connection may develop a different kind of literacy compared to a student in an urban place with fiber internet. Or someone might be literate in using Discord. They know about slangs such as 67, relapse, smogged. They know how to use Instagram or other apps that we see online. But if you take the same literacy to the academic context, such as making a research paper, there might be a gap. Because literacy is about reading the room and not just the text. Next is pluralistic. There is no single way to be literate anymore, because students engage with multiple modes such as reading. navigating an app interface, understanding media, and knowing how to search information online. Well, how about an example where these skills are combined into one? Well, in a requirement from our PPITTP, we searched for information and used our skills to make a video in which we posted in social media. Now, here we have a question wherein, is there any requirements in USDP wherein there are policies or guidelines that we have to follow in posting videos such as this? Well, an interview with the Director of Strategic Communications, Ma'am Ansitoy, she said that there are no guidelines as it is an academic requirement in which they have no say in this. Next is, literacy is dynamic. Literacy is never finished. It is constantly evolving because technology and society never stop moving. Here we have Web 1.0, where there are sites that it is a read-only site, which is just static, wherein we are only passive consumers, wherein we just intake the information, but we cannot produce or also post. It is handled by those who are in authority. And then it evolved to Web 2.0. From read-only, we are now an active participant or a creator. Internet became a two-way street. We don't just read. Proficiency now requires knowing how to post responsibly and identifying engagement bait for misinformation. Next, we have Web 3.0, where we can read, write, and execute. You now become a co-creator and analyst. The internet understands and predicts what you need. We have Brave, wherein unlike Chrome, where your digital footprints can be recorded, in Brave you have built-in privacy and tracking features. It's like you own what you search, unlike in Chrome. Now here we have Web 4.0, wherein the advanced technology is quite integrated into our technology. Here we have the advanced technology learning our algorithm and adjusting to our preferences. It's like wherein we use AI for learning and then they adjust to our style. Next is the summarization, wherein Web 1.0 is just static web, Web 2.0, which is social and interactive, Web 3.0, smart and decentralized, and Web 4.0, which is the symbiotic web, where human and AI collaboration is in real life. Next is continuum and divide. Literacy is a continuum, which means something that keeps on going and changing slowly over time. So literacy is not something that you have or do not have, because continuum means it changes over time. Now here we have an example. Now here we have Olivia and Carlo. So Olivia lives in an urban area and has a high-end device and a fast internet connection, while Carlo lives in a rural barangay and relies on piso Wi-Fi. Before, people might say that they are separated by a divide or a wall. Olivia is someone who is labeled as someone the have, or Carlo the does not have. Now we assume that Olivia is automatically well equipped just because of her access. Well, here we have some initiatives that the ICT Free Wi-Fi for All here in CDO and CDO CT LGU that aim to bridge the gap. So let's say they are now in the same level. So what if they see a viral post about getting an allowance from the city? Olivia, who has unlimited Wi-Fi, is used to things being so fast that she does not stop to think and enters her private information in the post that she saw online, so she did not verify. While Carlo, who spent years managing limited connections, to which he paused and verified it first. While digital divide is now an outdated way to measure a person's capability. Nowadays, we don't find digital knowledge divide that relevant anymore because students can find ways to navigate digital spaces even in limited resource contexts. Now let us move to this idea. The divide is not just about access to gadgets or the internet. It is also about the ability to find, evaluate, create, and share information, and knowing how to use digital tools critically. That's why we move on to the need of integration. Now, traditional literacy was the foundation of communication, but today it demands more as basic literacy is increasing. Technology, media, and information are deeply intertwined in today's society. While people possess different levels of literacy depending on context, needs, and resources, which drives the need for integration for literacy, which is moving beyond reading and writing, blending media, digital, and information skills as a response to misinformation and technology changes. Because right now we are experiencing challenges such as poverty, and we hope that to integrating these skills will help us alleviate these problems, because ayudas or government aid alone cannot help this. We have to let citizens know or inform citizens how to use the tools that we have. So let us first start with the challenges that we see right now. Poverty. Around 10.3% of the world population is in poverty, and in the Philippines in 2025 it is 13.2% of the Filipinos are in poverty. But since due to the fuel crisis, it was said that the energy crisis may push up to 3.1 million Filipinos more into poverty, which is from 13.2, the percent is now 14.4%. Next is misinformation. Aside from poverty, we also experience misinformation, wherein 65% of Filipinos consider fake news as a serious problem, 43% consider the task somewhat difficult, and 22% find it difficult to identify fake news. In a world wherein we always use our gadgets, it is quite a problem wherein Filipinos find it difficult to identify misinformation. Well, in the age of media convergence, where our phone is our bank, our newsroom, our classroom, we aren't just passive consumers, but we are also the producers. This is why it is necessary to blend media and information and digital literacy with critical thinking and ethical reasoning. Integration helps us make more informed decisions and analyze. As an example, we are taught to access reliable information, create narratives, and share online content responsibly, such as in LARD, where there are posts that we have to give our opinions on, in which we know how to search for information and make a narrative about it. And so, from basic literacy to functional and to digital and media skills into integrating it into media and information literacy, which will be discussed by the next presenter. Thank you.
Okay, so hello guys. Now, before I start, I want you guys to imagine that this apple is a piece of information. Maybe a headline you just saw or a video that suddenly appeared on your newsfeed. Now, at first glance, it looks fresh and trustworthy, ready to be consumed. But just as our bodies need an immune system to distinguish between healthy cells and harmful viruses, our minds also need a system that could process media properly. And that system is media and information literacy. Now, take a look at this image right here. The apple that we thought was fresh actually has a rotten part of it, meaning some information may appear trustworthy on the surface, but beneath it, it can be false and misleading. Now, when we accept it without checking and without media and information literacy, our minds become susceptible into believing fake news. Now, once you swallow a lie, once you believe it, it would then start to change what we think, what we feel, and how we see the world. Now, this is why MIL is not just a school subject, no? It protects the mind like a vaccine. It's like a habit of asking, is this information nutritious or is it toxic? This is why today I will be talking about media and information literacy. Now, be honest. Who here has seen posts like this? Of course, naghanta, no? And syempre, if kakita-taan excited na tayo, takay-dili na mamutang sa'yo. But, kidding aside, let me ask you guys, is this content reliable or not? Exactly, no? It's not reliable. Why? Because even though the picture has the DepEd's official logo on it, the um, the author that published the information is not DepEd's official page. Also, in the official page of DepEd, we won't see any announcements regarding the no face-to-face classes in all levels at January 28 to 30, 2026. Now, that's exactly why we're talking about media and information literacy, because it is here to build our immunity. So the next time you're offered an apple online, you'll have the antibodies ready to spot that rot before it ever reaches your mind. And it's not just my opinion. This is based on our survey at USTP Senior High School. So students here strongly agree that critical thinking is very important when using online information. Now, shown by the very high mean score of 4.50, this means students understand that not everything they see online is trustworthy. So they need to analyze and evaluate information carefully before believing or sharing it. Now, they also agree with a mean score of 4.47 that literacy today is more than just reading and writing. Because as we all know, being literate means knowing how to read and write. But in today's digital world, being literate also means knowing how to use technology, identify reliable sources, and critically think about what you see online. This idea is especially important in media and information literacy because, according to UNESCO, MIL is a set of skills that helps people access, understand, evaluate, create, and share information in different formats. It teaches individuals how to use various tools in a critical, ethical, and effective way so that they can actively participate in personal, professional, and social activities. Now, you guys might be wondering, Judy, is MIL just a one thing or is it a bunch of classes put together? Now, according to UNESCO, we should treat MIL as a composite concept. That means it is made up of different but connected skills that work together. Like, think of it as a smartphone. A smartphone is not just a phone, a camera, or a calculator. It is just one device where all these functions work together. In the same way, UNESCO says that we can no longer separate media, information, and digital skills because they are all connected. Because of this, UNESCO unifies three important literacies: media literacy, information literacy, and ICT and digital literacy. Now, when combined, they became a harmonized set of skills. It is not only about reading, but also about accessing, evaluating, creating, and sharing information. In the digital age, these skills work together in order for us to actively participate in society because being smart is not enough. You need to be media and information literate. And as you can see in this photo, UNESCO is training students to be smart citizens. They are teaching a harmonized set of skills that includes accessing, evaluating, analyzing, creating, and sharing information. Because these skills are essential in today's digital world where people are constantly exposed to different forms of media. Okay, now with that in mind, let us now move on to one of the three core components of media and information literacy. That is media literacy. Media literacy focuses on understanding how media works, making wise choices about what to watch or read, checking whether information is reliable, and going beyond simply consuming content by creating and sharing responsibly. Now, media information literacy is important because it helps us determine whether information is reliable. Now, a common example is this photo right here, a fake news involving public figures like Ma'am Cara David, where false posts can appear believable, especially online. Now, in this context, people assume that a blue check mark means an account is trustworthy, which can lower their skepticism. Because of this, fake news spreads more easily when accounts appear verified or credible. To avoid being misled, it's very important for us to verify information first before believing or sharing it, even if the source looks official. Now that we understand the importance of checking media messages, let us move on to the next component of MIL: information literacy. Now, information literacy focuses on finding and evaluating information using reliable sources, and of course, verifying whether the data behind a post actually exists. Let us use this as an example. Now, let's assume we are not sure if this information is credible or not. But since we are information literate, we don't just immediately kind of believe or share it. We verify it. One way to do that is by using a reverse image search. So we go to Google, click this camera icon, then we upload and search the image, and this is what comes out. After checking the results, we can see that the information has already been labeled as fake news. That's why being information literate is important, because it helps us verify information before believing or sharing it. Now that we understand how to verify information, let us move on to the last component of MIL, ICT and digital literacy. So, this literacy refers to the ability to use digital devices, software, and technological infrastructure effectively. Together, these skills create a stronger foundation that not only helps a person use technology, but also understand and use information wisely and responsibly in the digital world. So, this literacy is then composed of two areas. First is ICT literacy, and the second is digital literacy. For ICT literacy, it is considered the technical root of MIL. This means ICT provides the skills and tools needed to access and use technology such as computers, the internet, and software, which serves as the foundation of MIL. Simply put, ICT literacy is about knowing how to use technology. For example, using a computer to create presentation, sending emails, or using search engines to find information online. So, for digital literacy, it is the ability to understand, evaluate, and responsibly use digital information and media. So it is not just about using technology, but also about thinking critically about what you see online. For example, identifying fake news, checking if a website is credible, and protecting personal information online. Now, to understand its global importance, um, think of UNESCO as the architect. They create the blueprints through policies and strategies that guide nations in building smart and resilient populations. But even the best blueprint cannot succeed if the system is powered by a contaminated fuel. Now let us think of this fuel as the information, the fuel for democracy, because it helps keep citizens informed and institutions accountable. However, today we face what is called information pollution. It's like putting water or dirt into a car's gas tank. So like instead of helping the engine run smoothly, it clogs and damages it. The same way, when false or misleading information spreads in society, it changes how people think and make decisions. That is information pollution. As a result, society stalls. People may make bad choices because they are misinformed. Trusts in institutions like the government and media weakens, and of course, disagreements grow into social conflicts. So, just like a car cannot function with a contaminated fuel, a society cannot function well if its information system is polluted. So, to keep our information fuel clean, schools need clear policies. So, when we ask um, Licean students about institutional guidelines addressing misinformation, they gave it a mean of 3.53. While that is a high agreement, um, it shows that there is still a room for us to strengthen our defenses against information pollution. This is why MIL is important because it helps people identify reliable information, think critically, act responsibly, and contribute to global progress through the Sustainable Development Goals or SDGs. In fact, MIL is closely connected to several SDGs because, according to UNESCO, in Module 13, Media Technology and Sustainable Development, MIL particularly supports three SDGs. The first goal is Goal 4, Quality Education. Now, in the past, of course, being literate meant knowing how to read and write. Today, if you cannot verify a website or use a digital portal, you are considered functionally illiterate. With this, they decided to integrate MIL into teacher training and school curricula so that we know how to use digital platforms and evaluate information, which are key skills for modern education. Now, the second goal is Goal 5, Gender Equality. Now, gender equality aims to give equal opportunities to all gender because, of course, gender equality na ba daw? But UNESCO often highlight women because they are more affected by the unequal access to technology. This is called the digital gender divide, which refers to the gap between men and women in access to technology. Because, according to UNESCO, globally women account for just 35% of STEM graduates and only 26% of the workforce in data and artificial intelligence. So, this means that women are often less likely to have access to these tools, which limits their opportunities in education, jobs, and innovation. Because of this, Goal 5 focuses on closing this gap by improving digital access and skills for women. Because the goal is to ensure that everyone has equal opportunities in today's digital world. For the last goal, Goal 16, Peace, Justice, and Strong Institutions. Guys, we are living in a disinfodemic. What is disinfodemic? Disinfodemic is a term used by UNESCO to describe how fast lies spread during global crisis like um, the pandemic or elections. So, because of this, Goal 16 decided to fight it by equipping citizens to identify free hate speech and fake news that fuels conflict. So, now that we've tackled the SDGs, let us now look at how UNESCO help other countries put MIL into action. The first one is MIL curriculum for teachers. So basically, it provides a comprehensive um, e-platform uh, that sets the global standard for teaching digital skills. So this is used by educators worldwide to teach everything from AI to fact checking. Then the next one is Global MIL Week. Global MIL Week is a major annual event that brings the world together to celebrate progress in media literacy. So, in this one, it means that Global MIL Week is kanang different groups from around the world hold activities and programs to promote MIL. At the same time, UNESCO partners with one member state to host a major global conference where experts, educators, and leaders gather to discuss issues like misinformation, digital skills, and responsible media use. So, to further understand how these nations respond to these challenges, we will hear from our next reporter, Mr. Elijah Bacol, who will discuss country readiness in media and information literacy.
Okay, so thank you, Judy. But before we move on to one of the main topics of UNESCO's Global Media and Information Literacy Framework, we must first look into this image right here. Upon seeing this picture, what's the first word that comes to mind? You might think of readiness or preparedness, and that is exactly connected to our topic today. But let us move forward in the individual level and dive deeper into the context of MIL on the national level. We instead ask, are we really ready? So good day everyone, my name is Elijah James Bacol from grade 11 discipline, and I will talk about UNESCO's Global Media Information Literacy Framework, Country Readiness and Competencies, Tier 1, which is Country Readiness. So we must first understand what country readiness really means. So according to UNESCO, country readiness refers to how prepared a nation is to support and promote media and information literacy at the national level. It is not limited to one sector only. Education, policy, media systems, access to information, and public participation are all interconnected in shaping an MIL-ready society. To better understand this idea, let us look at a concept of building an MIL-ready or media and information literacy-ready nation. Here we have Nation A and Nation B. Nation A is with a yellow circle and Nation B is with a blue circle. So Nation A and Nation B are both functioning societies with media and information systems already in place. However, the way these systems are developed and supported creates different outcomes in media and information literacy readiness. Okay, so according to UNESCO's framework, the readiness of a country can be observed through several key foundations. These include education, policy, media and information supply, access and use, and civil society participation. Okay, so when they are bound together, these foundations shape how prepared a nation is in developing a media and information literate population. Okay, so the first foundation is education. It asks the question, how is media and information literacy taught? And it focuses on how media and information literacy is taught within the learning system. So let us take a look at the contrast of the two nations earlier. Okay, so for nation A on the left, media and information literacy is integrated across different subjects within the education system. Students are regularly exposed to evaluating sources and applying digital skills in various contexts. So those efforts that the students do are supported by national programs and structured teacher training. On the other hand, for Nation B, in this picture that we see, media and information literacy is taught as a dedicated subject, particularly at the senior high school level. However, integration across other subjects can vary depending on the school and available resources. That explains the image right here that the teacher is still teaching on a blackboard um, instead of using digital tools. So the students are now introduced to core concepts, though the depth of application may differ. Now let's move on to the second, which is policy. So it asks the question, what supports MIL, or Media and Information Literacy? So this area right here refers to the systems, programs, and institutional support that guide media and information literacy efforts. So let us take a look again on Nation A and Nation B with these images right here. For Nation A on the left, media and information literacy is guided by a clear and coordinated direction. So from the image right here, everything else is organized and interconnected, which means efforts across sectors are aligned, which allows programs to be implemented more consistently over time. In contrast, Nation B, with this image represented here, media and information literacy is included within broader policies. However, due to that reason, implementation can vary across institutions and programs are not always sustained in the same way. So moving on from policy, we head on to media and information supply. It asks the question, how does media and information literacy reach the society? It focuses on what information exists within the system and how it is produced and distributed to its constituents. Let's take a look again at Nation A and Nation B. At Nation A on the left has these images right here, which signifies that in Nation A system, media and information are supported by well-established institutions involved in production and distribution. Information is created across multiple platforms, including broadcasts, print, and digital media. There's also a wide national coverage, allowing information to reach different parts of the population. In addition, structured systems such as libraries and digital archives support the storage and accessibility of knowledge. This can be represented by the images right here, signifying that media and information supply in Nation A is strong. In contrast, we look into Nation B. Media and information here are also present through existing institutions and platforms. However, production capacity may be more limited, and resources can vary across organizations. And the coverage in Nation B is not always consistent across all areas, which can affect how information is distributed. Information systems such as libraries and archives are available, though access and development may differ depending on location. Looking into the picture right here, the demand is high, but the supply cannot keep up with that high level of demand in Nation B. With media and information supply tackled, we move on to access and use, which answers the question, how connected are people? Okay, so for Nation A, access to media and information is supported by widespread connectivity, signifying the high Wi-Fi signal image right here. And the individuals below are able to use devices such as smartphones and computers in their daily activities. Beyond access, there is also active use of information where people engage with content for learning, communication, and decision making. On the other hand, we observe Nation B, which their system access to media and information is present, but it can vary across different groups and regions. So while many individuals are able to connect through digital devices, um, others may experience limitation in connectivity or resources. So as a result, the way information is used can differ, with some populations engaging more actively than others. This stark contrast right here is represented by the images on the right, where there is a disparity across different regions. And last but not the least, we look into the last area, which is the civil society, which asks the question, how do people participate in terms of media and information literacy? So for Nation A, their civil society plays an active role in engaging with media and information. So communities participate in discussions, collaborative activities, and public forums where information is shared and evaluated. So their system reflects a higher level of involvement in the information environment, where individuals contribute to and interact with content. On the other hand, we observe Nation B with this image right here. In Nation B's system, participation in media and information spaces is present, but may be less consistent. Opportunities for engagement exist, though involvement can vary depending on context and access. So, as a result of this, interaction with information in civic spaces may be more limited or uneven across different groups. So, with those areas in mind, we can say that both nations possess the foundation of a media and information system. However, when we look at how we contrasted them both, the difference lies in how consistently these foundations are developed, supported, and connected with one another. So, over time, these differences influence the overall readiness of a nation in media and information literacy. When we look into Nation A seems like the developed nation, and when we look into Nation B, it is the underdeveloped nation. So, in actuality, these nations are not hypothetical at all. Um, Let us reveal them both. Nation A is actually Singapore, while Nation B is sadly and unfortunately our country, the Philippines. So, with those things in mind, it gives us the thought that in how we built the nation Philippines, it is like there's no undo button at all. However, we should keep in mind that there is a continue button. So we click into that and move into our topic, which is five key initiative categories to enable media and information literacy environment at the national level. Okay, so to start our topic on the key initiative categories to enable MIL environment at the national level, we first tackle the first one that we have mentioned earlier in the nation building concept, which is first is we have media and information in education. So for this area, we will tackle three distinct what you call this categories, starting with teacher training. So UNESCO highlights a global concern in media and information literacy implementation. So, with the data presented here, many teachers still feel underprepared for the demands of digital era education. So, across international studies, a significant proportion of educators report gaps in their readiness to teach with emerging digital tools, particularly in handling rapidly changing information environments. So, teacher training in media and information literacy is guided by major international frameworks. With these three right here, we have this book that we are reporting on, Global Media and Information Literacy Assessment Framework, Country Readiness and Competencies, um, UNESCO's Media and Information Literacy Curriculum for Teachers, and lastly, UNESCO's ICT Competency Framework for Teachers. Excuse me. So, at the center of implementation of media and information literacy in education, we have naturally the teacher in front. So, they act as the bridge between information systems, technology, and student learning. So, MIL ready teachers are not just content deliverers. They are critical thinkers, digital navigators, and information guides equipped to handle complex media environments. So, to further understand this concept, we have the same teacher holding the Infinity Gauntlet in Marvel's universe. First is we look into six key competencies that the teachers must develop represented by the stones. First is we have fact checking. So teachers in the digital world must possess the ability to fact check information because before handling information to their students, they must first confirm and verify whether the information they are presenting to students are factual or not. Next is digital ethics. So in the digital landscape, since that there is a risk of exploiting our security and privacy, teachers must um, possess the ability to maintain high levels of um, digital ethics to protect not only her information but also the students as well. An example of this will be not posting her students' faces in her official Facebook page. Next is media creation. So this refers to the teacher's ability to and create and apply um, to create media tools and works. So this includes making video lessons or PowerPoint presentations such as this one, which is a clear adaptation in the new in the new digital world that we are living in today. Next is critical analysis. They must be able to analyze and think critically when handling information that they must they must impart to their students. Next is technology integration. They must be able to know how to use digital tools or be digital literate, like using like utilizing utilizing the given depth tools like Microsoft or Canva itself. Next is effective information management. Like, since they're handling a lot of information in the digital world, they must be equipped to handle information and organize them in a systematic manner as well. So, with those six competencies in mind, we move back to our teacher. So, an MIL ready teacher is one who can not only use digital tools, but also guide students in critically understanding, evaluating, and creating information across different media platforms. Because, as UNESCO noted, that in order to impart good education in media and information literacy, the teachers that will handle them must be equipped with the skills before imparting education itself. So, with teacher training tackled, we move on to the second area for MIL in education, which is the curriculum. So, a key decision in media and information literacy education systems is whether MIL should be taught as a standalone subject or integrated across different learning areas. We move we move back again to the comparison earlier with a clearer distinction here whether MIL should be integrated or be a standalone subject. So in the Philippines, um, media and information literacy has been institutionalized in its curriculum as early of 2013, making it one of the early adopters of media and information literacy as a formal subject in secondary education, particularly in senior high school. However, ADCOM 2 in the year 2024 noted that parts of the curriculum have not kept pace with rapid changes in the digital environment, particularly with the rise of generative AI and algorithm-based media systems. So we move again to the three books of UNESCO with an emphasis on media and information literacy curriculum for teachers. So media and information literacy classrooms are connected to these subjects right here. So UNESCO argues that media and information literacy should not remain isolated in a single classroom because media and information affects every discipline. In science, MIL helps evaluate scientific claims, misinformation, and AI-generated research studies. In literature and English, MIL develops critical reading by analyzing bias, persuasion, and language influence. In arts, MIL teaches how visuals, advertisements, and media shape perception and emotion. In ICT, MIL focuses on ethical technology use, privacy, and even cybersecurity. In mathematics, MIL strengthens the ability to interpret statistics like our topic in grade 11, statistics and probability, graphs, and data critically, recognizing that numbers can both inform and mislead. Um, it teaches, with all those in mind, it teaches that media and information literate classroom possesses areas, all areas of subjects in the student's education. Okay, so with those in mind, we can affirm that it is better that we integrate MIL in the curriculum itself rather than separating it as a standalone subject. So we move on to our third area for MIL in education, which is the resource allocation. Sorry. So, globally, teachers have rapidly adapted to digital education. OECD TALIS data shows that the share of lower secondary teachers frequently using ICT in teaching increased from 38% in 2013 to 53% in 2018. So adaptation includes online platforms, multimedia instruction, and digital classroom tools. But there is also an increased usage, but there is also an idea that increased usage does not automatically translate to full MIL readiness, especially with the emerging technologies that we have today, emer- like emerging generative AI. Okay, so let us take a look at this contrast, like right here. Sorry. So the first one, we have a teacher carrying both a book and a laptop, signifying that she is utilizing modern tools. So, in contrast, we have a teacher right here with a frowned look on her face, signifying that she is still using outdated resources. So, even with curriculum inclusion, implementation depends on institutional support. Some teachers have access to updated resources, while others rely on outdated materials when teaching rapidly evolving topics. So, let us move on to investment beyond technology. So, resource allocation is not just limited to as to what resources the teachers can use. We have first we have um, funding. So, educational research allocation works as a layered system and not a single action. So, at the base is institutional funding and policy support. So, um, this enables updated learning materials, which then support trained teachers. And it ultimately leads to MIL ready students. So, if any of these three layers are weak, the entire system becomes unstable. So, with those things in mind, teacher training, curriculum, and resource allocation, um, UNESCO emphasized that MIL becomes truly institutionalized only when those areas we have mentioned work together. So without one of those, MIL implementation remains incomplete. However, we have identified them so far, and in building an MIL ready nation, we must take a look at those three areas in focusing on education to affirmly say that the nation is MIL ready education. So let us take a look at the insights of 186 students in Cagayan de Oro City, comprised of COC, FINMA, Pilgrim, Lourdes, Liceo, and finally USTP itself. So, with the numbers right here, we're going to present the insights of the students according to these, from low agreement, moderate agreement, high agreement, and very high agreement. So let's take a look at the framework in practice in education. Digital tool usage is high at a mean of 3.71, showing that um, there is a high level of use of digital tools in schools, which the students agree upon. However, teacher training remains at a moderate mean of 3.44, showing that educational readiness still depends on strengthening institutional support systems. So, with those things in mind, we head on to the second key initiative, which is media and information literacy policy. So, let's ask ourselves, what is policy in the context of media and information literacy? So, let's take a look at the simple definition of Britannica UK of on policy. It states here that policy is a set of ideas or a plan of what to do in particular situations that has been agreed to officially by a group of people, a business organization, a government, or a political party. However, in the context of MIL, policy refers to the set of laws, frameworks, and guidelines that shape how media and information systems are developed, regulated, and taught within a country. So it includes educational policies, digital governance laws, media regulations, and excuse me, ICT strategies that collectively influence how citizens access, evaluate, and use information. So, in terms of country readiness, media and information literacy policy determines whether a nation has a coordinated system for developing media literacy or whether efforts are fragmented across separate sectors. So, the strong MIL policy system indicates higher institutional readiness, while weak or disconnected policy structures suggest limited national coordination in addressing the challenges of the digital information environment. So let us take a look at three pillars in the National Media and Information Literacy Policy, starting with how well education um, how well education systems implement those policies. Media institutions and ICT structures are connected through a systematic way of guidelines or policies. So, if these sectors operate separately, national MIL, okay, sorry. So, if these sectors operate separately, national MIL implementation becomes fragmented. So let's take a look at media and information literacy beyond the classroom. So, UNESCO emphasizes that MIL policy should not only exist inside schools. So, an effective MIL policy framework must shape learning in classrooms, workplaces, and communities because misinformation and digital communication affect citizens throughout their everyday lives. So, with the sectors and group of people identified, we now look into some international policy models, starting with Finland. So, Finland has a website called Finnish National Agency for Education. So, what Finland actually does is they integrate media literacy across all subjects, treating it as a cross curricular competency embedded in the everyday learning of their students. So, so, so as we scroll to their website right here, we can read that media literacy is seen as an essential competence throughout the Finnish educational system, from early childhood education and care to adult education and non-formal education. So, from my point earlier, media and information literacy integration in education is not limited to students going to K to 12 to college. It also comprises the adults as they grow up. So, with Finland identified, we head on to the United Kingdom. So, in the United Kingdom, um, media literacy is supported through a national institutional approach um, led by a what you call this? Led by an institution called Ofcom. So Ofcom is or the Office of Communications is mandated to promote media literacy by improving public understanding of media services and supporting informed engagement with digital platforms. So, as we scroll onto their official website right here, we can read that Ofcom has had media literacy duties since the year 2003, set out in Section 11 of their Communications Act of 2003. So, with that date in mind, we can really see that the United Kingdom has put emphasis on media literacy duties as early as 2003. The book of UNESCO has been was made at, by the year 2013. However, 10 years prior before that, the United Kingdom has made a move regarding regarding implementing media literacy duties for its citizens. So with United Kingdom identified, we head on to the People's Republic of China. So what actually piqued my interest is China. As I looked for information regarding policies for their constituents, I discovered the English translation of Cybersecurity Law of the People's Republic of China. So, China's approach emphasizes cybersecurity and information governance within a comprehensive legal framework. So, the Cybersecurity Law of China defines obligations for network operators, strengthens data protection requirements, and reinforces state oversight of digital information systems. So, key provisions include in Article 21, stating that um, the People's Republic of China requires government agencies and mass media to regularly conduct cybersecurity awareness and education activities for the public. And next is we have Article 22, which states that the government mandates state support for cybersecurity education and training in schools, universities, and other learning institutions. So Articles 21 and 22 mainly highlight cybersecurity support, education, and training, which reflects a governance model focused on regulated and secure information environments. So, with that in mind, we can actually infer that the three global models of media and information literacy policy show that countries operationalize media and information literacy through different institutional strategies. Some may embed it in education systems, others regulate it through national agencies, while some integrate it into citizenship or cybersecurity governance. So, despite the differences, all of them aim to strengthen citizens' ability to critically engage with information systems. Um, so now So now let's take a look at the local context here in USDP. So, in our interview with Ms. Ansitoy, the director of USDP Strategic Communications Office, revealed an important institutional divide. So, institutional branding policies focus on managing official communication and protecting organizational reputation. As Ms. Itoy noted, MIL efforts are fragmented across departments rather than guided by a unified institutional policy. So this creates a separation between institutional communication control and actual media literacy education. So responses to online issues such as cyberbullying or taking pictures without consent are often coordinated across multiple units rather than managed under a single MIL framework. So let's revisit the Philippine policy landscape. So in the Philippines, MIL related policies exist already exist across multiple sectors. So again, the senior high school curriculum institutionalizes media and information literacy in education, while there are laws such as Cybercrime Prevention Act and Data Privacy Act, which regulates parts of the digital information environment. However, these policies remain distributed across different agencies rather than unified under a national MIL strategy, reflecting that the Philippines' MIL policies are still a work in progress. So, UNESCO emphasizes that sustainable MIL development requires coordinated policy direction. So, while many countries implement MIL related initiatives across education, media, and ICT sectors, effectiveness increases when these efforts are unified rather than fragmented under a clear national framework. So, without coordination, MIL policies remain fragmented, as I have mentioned, limiting their overall impact on national media literacy readiness. So, um, with those in mind, we can say that there is a unified MIL roadmap in terms of policies. So, let's take a look again in our survey of 186 students. So the students have had a moderate agreement with a 3.36B that there are institutional guidelines addressing misinformation. So what does this mean? It means that there is existing policies addressing issues such as misinformation, but there is still a gap that needs to be filled because this fact is not applicable to all areas in the Philippines. It might not translate well in regions that have um, low access to digital tools and internet connectivity. So, with MIL policy identified, we move on to the third key initiative, which is media and information supply. So, UNESCO emphasizes that sustainable MIL development requires coordinated policy direction. So, while many countries earlier implement MIL related initiatives across education, media, and ICT sectors, effectiveness increases when these efforts are unified rather than fragmented under a clear national framework. So, without coordination, MIL policies may remain scattered, limiting their overall impact on national media literacy readiness. Um, so we have a clear goal in media and information policy to have a unified MIL roadmap so that instead of fragmented, um, there is actually a clear direction in institutionalizing MAL. So let's go back to our survey earlier. Um, the 186 students in Cagayan City um, has a moderate agreement on the note that there are institutional guidelines addressing misinformation. So while that might indicate a high level of agreement, this might not translate well in different regions across the Philippines because on remote areas they might lack internet connectivity or not have access to digital tools. That's why we still need to improve our policies in regards to media and information in the Philippines. So with policy tackled, we move on to the third, which is media and information supply. So um, UNESCO defines media and information supply as the absolute mix, availability, and diversity of information channels operating within a country. So, a healthy country requires multiple independent pathways so citizens never become dependent on a single information gatekeeper. So, we will have traditional, what you call this? Um, traditional traditional channels, which here we have newspaper, the television, and the library. And on the right, we have the more recent or the more advanced um, environments, which is social media, generative AI, and online podcasts. So, according again to UNESCO's framework, a nation's supply is heavily dictated by its regulatory mechanisms. So, specific media laws, ownership rules, and even political boundaries determine whether a country has a thriving private press, trusted public broadcasting, or restrictive centralized censorship. This majorly applies to the media houses in the Philippines, such as GMA, ABS-CBN, or even local news outlets such as Sunstar. So, with that in mind, UNESCO also noted that there is a vital structural detail. While national media coverage, such as GMA and ABS-CBN, gives a broad baseline, it is the availability of subnational and community-based media that directly shapes a citizen's immediate, day-to-day information environment. So, to understand how information supply can be secured, we look into another global model, which is Estonia. So, Estonia built a globally renowned supplies ecosystem by establishing what they call the X Road. So in X Road, public records, educational materials, and state archives remain completely open source, which tells us that the country is building an immutable, trusted supply of truth that blocks external manipulation. So we can really see that Estonia um, has information supply completely available for the public with a label here stating that there is a 100% digital public repositories. So when we evaluate our infrastructure supply against global baselines, um, we can see that um, what you call this, our data shows a clear contrast. On one hand, the sufficiency of digital devices and ICT facilities for learning needs um, sufficiency of digital devices and ICT facilities for learning needs scores an exceptional 3.75 mean, indicating high agreement um, among students. But on the other hand, the physical reliability of school-provided internet access drops down to a 3.26 mean, which sits at a moderate level. So it gives us a clear contrast on tool sufficiency versus network supply. Well, there is a sufficiency in tools and how we use them. What hinders them most is the network supply. So with that in mind, um, we move on to we move on to we move on to UNESCO pillar, which is the open educational resources. So according to UNESCO, an increasingly vital pillar of modern information supply is the open data and open educational resources movement that ensures the public has free, unhindered access to verified academic knowledge. But so far in my research, there is limited nations that implement this idea of UNESCO, with Estonia being one of the few implementing it well. So, another major point of resilience in our supply profile is the accessibility of library and online learning resources, which holds a strong 3.65 mean, indicating high agreement. So, this shows that our internal access to structured academic data remains highly secure even when external networks fluctuate. So, to wrap up on the third indicator, UNESCO reminds us that information supply is not just about quantity, it is also about quality. So let us think of our information ecosystem like a water filtration system. So an institution can provide a massive endless flow of digital channels, but if it lacks clear structural defensive filters to strain out the contamination of misinformation, the supply becomes toxic and harmful rather than useful. So true readiness means we don't just build a wider pipe, we have to build a stronger filter. As UNESCO notes, a high information supply is meaningless if the system lacks structural filters to strain out digital pollution. Now let us move on to the fourth indicator, which is media and information access and use. So, UNESCO establishes a sharp distinction between access and use. Access is simply the operational gateway, the physical presence of tech infrastructure like broadband penetration, mobile connectivity, or school IT labs in the citizens area. Meanwhile, um, use, on the other hand, is entirely cognitive. So UNESCO also defines it as the actual execution of media literacy skills. Um, with first we have consulting varied sources, retrieving the data from those sources, cross-checking biases, and making an independent final judgment before making a decision. So globally, we look back to access. It is defined by consistency. So, South Korea achieved a 99.8% success rate in providing high-speed internet coverage across their entire population, as noted by UCLA's Institute. So, this means that before they even talked about media literacy, their government made sure that virtually 100% of students and citizens have an unchoked, flawless gateway to the digital world. So it sets the what you call this ultimate baseline for zero friction access. So our profile maps again heavy exposure to digital environments. So under our education metrics, the regular use of digital tools in teaching and learning holds a high 3.71 mean, reaching high agreements. So our schools are actively putting technology at the front and center of daily instruction. But let us put that reality into action. So when we look at the actual execution, we hit a stark contrast. UNESCO points out the severe friction that happens when tech demands out tech demands outpace network capacity, and our data backs this up perfectly. So while our instructional is high with 3.71 again, the actual reliability of school-provided internet access drops down to a moderate 3.26 means. So this metric explains the exact bottleneck shown on screen, that the curriculum expects constant digital activity, but the infrastructure forces students to sit and wait for the screen to load, like this graphic right here. So this brings us to the final, most crucial realization of indicator 4. Even when the connection is perfect, and even when that buffering wheels finally stop spinning, we cannot confuse high screen time with critical competence. UNESCO explicitly warns against this literacy trap. Just because digital tools are constantly running in our immediate environment, it does not mean the cognitive skills required to structurally decode message bias, spot propaganda, and deeply evaluate information have automatically developed. So access is just the open door, use is what happens in the mind. So UNESCO again notes that fast connection and constant exposure do not equal advanced critical data processing skills, which brings us to our point three. And last but not the least, we move on to our last indicator, which is civil society. So we begin indicator five with the official UNESCO definition of it. So UNESCO does not look at media literacy as just a government mandate or a tech feature. So UNESCO defines civil society as an independent network of citizens, academic institutions, and community organizations working from the ground up to up to protect public discourse and empower the population. So UNESCO again emphasizes on the concept of multi-stakeholderism. So true defense against disinformation cannot rely on top-down regulations alone. It requires an active, organic alliance of non-state actors like our teachers right here, um, student pools, and independent networks, which takes local ownership of the truth. So a core pillar of UNESCO's framework is the civic watchdog function. When state systems fall short or corporate media interests monopolize digital platforms, it is civil society that steps in to monitor information ecosystems, expose digital propaganda, and defend the public's right to free expression. So, UNESCO also notes that civil society ensures the concept of pluralism by protecting independent citizen journalism and academic research. It stops information from being controlled exclusively by elite gatekeepers, keeping the democratic space open for student and local perspectives. From the graphic right here, we can see that pluralism amplifies community, academic, and student-driven narratives, with the radio waves spreading outward alongside large corporate broadcast broadcast systems. So, um, one of the most vibrant civic ecosystems globally is, it actually surprised me too, is the Philippines. So the country has 10,000 plus active registered non-governmental and civil society groups, which is noted by Lycus.news. So what does this mean? Um, this framework of civil society fits their local reality perfectly. So the Philippines stands out as a premier example of this UNESCO model. So global data from Civicus Alliance showed that a staggering 85% of the population in the Asia Pacific region lives under heavily restricted information environments. But despite these massive regional pressure, Philippines' civil society refuses to be silenced, making us a major regional bastion of grassroots resistance. As shown here, that there still persists in an active civil society in our country. So we see the UNESCO watchdog function alive on our front lines every day. So faced with massive digital disinformation, independent bodies like Verifiles and Rappler, alongside the journalistic reach of um, the mainstream media ABS-CBN, um, those organizations bypasses bureaucratic delays by directly building grassroots fact-checking alliances with academic institutions, which transforms regular citizens and students into what you call this skillful fact checkers. So UNESCO explicitly points out a major global problem. Almost no one collects real empirical data on how these community efforts translate onto um, local school campuses. It is a research blind spot. However, the study or the survey we have did directly answers this call. Um, and here is what we discovered. So when we opened up that blind spot, our findings showed that the organic, everyday culture inside our schools is undeniably healthy. Think of the school right here like a greenhouse. It acts as a protective environment where teachers safely nurture critical habits like promoting digital citizenship, encouraging open debates about real world issues, and pushing students to evaluate information before they believe it. So, but here is the headline worthy finding. So when we asked those same 186 stakeholders to evaluate the big picture, the score for overall school readiness to support MIL dropped to a moderate 3.43 mean. So despite our strong individual cultural practices, the official institutional framework remains at a strictly baseline level. So, in conclusion, our data exposes a clear structural divide. In true Philippine fashion, our organic student and teacher culture is highly active, critical, and engaged, but it is currently pacing directly ahead of the formal institutional roadmap built to support it. So, in order to achieve true readiness, our administrative frameworks must step up to match the powerful civic energy already alive in our classrooms. So, now that we have mapped out the macro readiness of the nations, how do we actually protect ourselves on an individual level right now? Like, um, we can immediately secure our digital spaces by doing what we call the READY or the ready mnemonic. So first R, rigorously filter supply. So, since our data shows schools have a moderate 3.36 mean for specific misinformation guidelines, you cannot rely on institutional filters to protect your feed. You must become your own editor. Rigorously cross check viral claims, trace image origins like the reverse image search, and vet sources before accepting them as facts. Letter E. Engage critical use over access. So, our survey exposed a digital paradox. Tool usage is high at 3.71, but internet reliability is at a bottleneck of 3.26. So we should not confuse high screen time or tech access with critical competence. When bandwidth is low, make your cognitive engagement high, like evaluate platform biases, and also take note of algorithmic traps mindfully. So we move on to letter A, anchor in digital citizenship. So our schools in Cagayan de Oro City excel at promoting digital citizenship with a high 3.61 mean or high agreement. So to match this, we should um, level this with institutional strength on a personal level. We should anchor our daily digital footprint in ethics by refusing to share unverified rumors, like and thinking before you click, securing your data privacy, and keeping open discussions constructive. We move on to letter D. Demand integrated learning. So, with teacher training standing at a moderate 3.44 mean, media and information literacy skills are still catching up to rapid AI and algorithm shifts. So, don't let your media education stop at the classroom door. So, we should always be proactive, like apply critical analysis cross-disciplinarily to your science research, data statistics, and even to your everyday media consumption. And last but not the least, why? To complete the ready mnemonic, which is to yield mindful policy alignment. So, students in our survey feel highly informed about general rules with a 3.50 mean, but overall school MIL readiness is stuck at a moderate 3.43 due to fragmented guidelines. So we should close this institutional gap individually, yield to mindful posting and intentional output, ensuring your personal social media behavior aligns with ethical communication, even if a unified national roadmap isn't fully there yet. So I think that would be all for my presentation, and we move on to Mr. Demesana's report on um, country competencies.
So, good day, everyone. Today, I will discuss Tier 2 competence, media and information literacy, meal competence based on the UNESCO meal assessment framework. So, we'll we'll discuss target group. The main is target group is teacher and educators to strengthen their ability to teach media and information and digital literacy effectively. Second is students to develop critical thinking, responsibly media use, and digital skills, and school and administrator to support implement media and information literacy programs in schools. So last is parents and guardians to guide and monitor responsible digital and media use at home. So the teacher received training related to media and digital literacy is first is UNESCO emphasize that teachers and educators should first develop meal competencies before teaching them to students. This is because teachers play a very important role in preparing learners to become responsible and informed citizens in today's knowledge in society. In line up with this, teachers receive training related to the media and digital literacy based on the findings. The University of Science and Technology senior high school students shows a high agreement with a mean score of 3.78, while the other 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 school is like STI, such as STI's college senior high school students show a only moderate agreement with a mean score of 3.03. This indicate that some school provide stronger media and digital literacy training compared to the others. So we have done this. So let's proceed. So focus and empowering educators. This competency emphasizes the importance of supporting teachers and educators in improving their media and the and digital literacy skills. Educators should be equipped with proper training, knowledge, and strategies so they can guide students in using media and technology responsibly and effectively. So, next is promote responsible informed participations. This competency focus on encouraging individuals to participate actively and responsibly in digital media and environments. It involves thinking critically before sharing information, respecting others online, avoiding misinformation, and making informed decisions when using media and technology. So next proceed to strengthening digital and information competencies. This competency refers to the developing essential digital and information skills such as accessing, evaluating, analyzing, and using information effectively. It also includes the ability to use digital tools responsibly, communicate properly online, and adapt to modern technologies change. So let's proceed to core areas. So first is access and retrieval. This refers to the ability to locate, search, and obtain relevant information from different media and digital platform and information sources effectively or efficiently. So finding and reliable information. This involves identifying trustworthy, accurate, and useful information by checking sources, evidence, and credibility to avoid misinformation and unreliable content. So, so understanding and evaluation. This refers to the comprehending information and carefully examining it its purpose, accuracy, quality, and relevance before accepting or using it. Analyzing and assessing information critically. This involves thinking critically and about information by identifying bias, assumptions, misinformation, and different perspectives to make before judgment and decisions. Producing and distribution responsible content. This refers to creating, sharing, and communicating information ethically and responsible while respecting truth, privacy, copyright, and the impact of content on others. So we proceed to knowledge of information, knowledge of media and information, understanding different types of media and information sources and digital platforms, including how they influence people and society. So, understanding information sources, this refers to the ability to identify, access, and evaluate different sources, different sources of information such such as books, website, social media, and news outlets, journals, and other media platforms. It involves understanding where information comes from, determining if the source is credible and reliable, and recognizing bias, misinformation, or fake news. This competency helps individual make informed decision and use information responsibly. So, how we gonna do? Awareness of digital tools and platforms. This refers to having knowledge and understanding of different digital tools, application, and online platforms used for communication, learning, collaboration, and information sharing. It on it includes knowing how to use technology effectively, safely, and responsibly as well. And recognizing credibility versus false information. This refers to the ability of distinguish reliable to accurate information from false, misleading, or biased content. It involves checking the source, verifying facts, evaluating evidence, and identifying signs of misinformation or fake news. These skills helps individual make informed decisions and avoid spreading inaccurate information. Knowing ethical and legal standards, this refers to the understanding the proper of responsible use media, information, and digital technologies according to the ethical principles and legal rules. It includes respecting privacy, intellectual property, re- copyright laws, and practicing honesty and respecting when sharing or creating information online. This knowledge helps individuals become responsible and accountable on digital city. So the elements of attitude is mm, the elements of attitude is openness to learning, be being willing to learn new information technologies and ideas related to the media and digital literacy. Second is responsible, using media and information and digital platforms carefully, ethically, and responsibly. So last is the projects of open mindedness mindedness and curiosity. This attitude refers to being willing to explore new ideas, technologies, and information with interest and without prejudice. It encourages an individual to ask questions, seek understanding, and remain open to different viewpoints and experiences. Ethical responsibility. This refers to the acting honestly, responsibly, and respectfully when using media and information and digital technology. It includes avoiding misinformations, respecting privacy and copyright, and considering the impact of one's action online. respect diverse perspectives. These attitudes involve valuing and appreciate, appreciating different opinions, cultures, beliefs, and experiences. It encourages respectful communication and understanding in both digital and real world interactions. So last is commitment to lifelong learner. This refers to the continuously developing knowledge and skills in media, information, and digital literacy. At it emphasizes the importance of adapting to technology change and staying informed through life. And that's all. Thank you.